For 300,000 years, Neanderthals dominated Europe, stronger, smarter, and better adapted to the Ice Age than any other human species. Then, 40,000 years ago, they disappeared. Not gradually, not peacefully, almost overnight. For decades, scientists blamed climate change, disease, or even open warfare with modern humans. But in 2024, a groundbreaking study combining ancient DNA, climate models, and archaeological evidence revealed the true cause, and it's far more disturbing than anyone imagined. Neanderthals didn't just go extinct, they were erased by a perfect storm of betrayal, biological sabotage, and environmental warfare. And the worst part? We were the weapon. Every clue was hiding in plain sight. It took us decades to accept what the evidence was telling us because the truth was too uncomfortable to believe. Neanderthals were not the brutish cavemen of popular myth. For most of human history, we dismissed them as primitive brutes, hunched, grunting creatures dragging clubs through the mud. That image was wrong, catastrophically wrong. They were stronger than Homo sapiens, with denser bones built for physical endurance. Their brains were actually larger than ours. They were exquisitely adapted to Ice Age Europe, with short, stocky bodies engineered by evolution to conserve heat in some of the harshest conditions on the planet. And they were culturally sophisticated in ways that continue to astonish researchers. They created art. They made jewelry from eagle talons and shells. They buried their dead with apparent ritual. They crafted complex tools that rivaled anything early modern humans were producing. They were superior survivors in every way, said Dr. Svante Pääbo, who sequenced the first Neanderthal genome and won the Nobel Prize for his work. So why did they vanish the moment we arrived? That question haunted paleoanthropology for generations. The first answer scientists reached for? Climate change. For years, the dominant theory was elegant in its simplicity. Shifting ice ages overwhelmed the Neanderthals, and they simply couldn't adapt fast enough. It was a comfortable explanation. It absolved us of responsibility. But the timeline refused to cooperate. Neanderthals had survived not one, but multiple ice ages across 300,000 years of existence. They had endured glacial periods far more severe than anything that occurred 40,000 years ago. Climate was their home turf. If anything, they were better equipped for cold than we were. And crucially, climate records show no sudden, catastrophic cooling event at the precise moment Neanderthals vanished. The temperatures were fluctuating, yes, but they always had been. What the timeline did show was something far more pointed. Modern humans arrived in Europe, and almost immediately after, Neanderthals began to disappear. The Ice Age theory was a distraction, said Dr. Chris Stringer, a paleoanthropologist at the Natural History Museum in London. Something else killed them, and it wasn't the weather. The real answer was written in their DNA, and it was far darker. In 2010, Dr. Pääbo's team achieved something once thought impossible. They sequenced the full Neanderthal genome from 40,000-year-old bone fragments. What they found rewrote the human story entirely. All non-African humans carry between 1 and 4% Neanderthal DNA. The interbreeding had happened. It was real. Our ancestors and Neanderthals had met, lived alongside each other, and produced children together. But when scientists looked closer at which genes were exchanged, the picture turned sinister. Modern humans inherited Neanderthal genes for immune function, cold weather adaptation, and skin and hair traits. Useful upgrades for surviving Ice Age Europe. But the exchange was brutally one-sided. Neanderthals gained almost nothing of survival value in return. Large stretches of the Neanderthal genome show what geneticists call selection against, meaning the genes our ancestors passed to Neanderthals were actively harmful to them. It wasn't just sex, said Dr. Liron Carmel, a geneticist at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. It was biological warfare. The interbreeding that should have strengthened Neanderthals may have been one of the mechanisms that destroyed them. Modern humans didn't arrive in Europe with spears drawn. They arrived with something far more lethal and invisible. New research has begun to piece together exactly how Homo sapiens dismantled Neanderthal civilization without ever declaring war. The first weapon was disease. Homo sapiens had spent tens of thousands of years moving through tropical Africa and Asia, accumulating exposure to a vast library of pathogens. Neanderthals, isolated in Europe, had no immunity to most of them. The encounter between the two species would have been immunologically catastrophic for Neanderthals. A single cough could have wiped out an entire Neanderthal clan, said Dr. Charlotte Holdcroft, a paleopathologist at the University of Cambridge. We were walking biological weapons, and we didn't even know it. The second weapon was reproductive. Neanderthal Y chromosomes, passed exclusively from father to son, have vanished entirely from the modern human gene pool. Every other trace of Neanderthal DNA survived in some form. but the Y chromosome is gone. Modern human males appear to have outcompeted Neanderthal males for mates across generations, said Dr. Sergio Castellano, a geneticist at the Max Planck Institute. Over time, Neanderthal male lineages were simply bred out of existence. The third weapon was cultural. Neanderthals, apparently impressed by what they saw, began copying human tools and technologies. But they adopted our innovations without adopting the social structures that made those innovations powerful. They took the technology, but not the tribal networks, the trade alliances, the coordinated group strategies that gave modern humans their true edge. They adopted our tech, but not our tribal alliances, said Dr. Clive Finlayson, director of the Gibraltar Museum. And in doing so, they may have accelerated their own decline. In 2024, a team led by Dr. Kim Callan conducted one of the most comprehensive analyses of Neanderthal sites ever attempted, examining locations across Europe with new dating techniques and sediment analysis. What they found was chilling in its consistency. Across site after site, the pattern was identical. Caves and shelters that Neanderthals had occupied for thousands of years were suddenly abandoned, precisely as evidence of modern human presence appeared in the same regions. There were no massacre sites, no battlefields, no mass graves filled with Neanderthal remains bearing weapons wounds, just absence. Rapid, total, irreversible absence. And then something even more telling. Human tools began appearing in Neanderthal archaeological layers, followed shortly by the complete disappearance of Neanderthal tools from the record entirely. This wasn't war, said Dr. Callan. It was ecological replacement. We didn't need to fight them. We simply outcompeted them in every dimension that mattered for survival. Perhaps the most haunting detail of all is this. The last Neanderthals didn't die alone in some frozen wilderness, hunted to the last by modern human warriors. They lived among us. And that proximity is precisely what finished them. Excavations at Gorham's Cave in Gibraltar, one of the last known Neanderthal refuges, show unmistakable evidence of the two species sharing the same landscape for centuries. They were neighbors. Perhaps more than neighbors. And yet, as modern human populations grew and spread, Neanderthal genetic signatures fade from the record with heartbreaking speed. They trusted us, said Dr. Rebecca Ragg Sykes, author of Kindred, one of the most comprehensive studies of Neanderthal life ever written. And we replaced them, not with violence, but with our sheer biological momentum. We were a tide they had no way to hold back. Neanderthals did not simply go extinct in the way a species vanishes when its environment collapses. They were absorbed, diluted, gradually overwritten by a population that was faster, more connected, and, perhaps most critically, more numerous. Their genes survive inside us. Right now, fragments of Neanderthal DNA are influencing how your immune system fights infection, how your skin responds to cold, how your body metabolizes food in winter. They are still here, in the most literal biological sense. But their culture is gone. Their language, whatever it sounded like, is gone. Their art, their rituals, their way of understanding the world, erased as completely as if they had never existed. We didn't just outcompete them, said Dr. Pabo. We consigned them to oblivion, and kept only the parts of them that were useful to us. Neanderthals were the first victims of human expansion. They were not the last. The same forces that erased them, habitat competition, disease introduction, reproductive pressure, cultural displacement, are the forces we have unleashed on species after species across every continent on Earth. We're repeating the pattern, said Dr. Nick Longrich, a paleontologist at the University of Bath. From mammals to birds to reptiles, we are driving species to extinction the same way we drove Neanderthals there. Not through malice, but through expansion, through simply existing at scale. The Neanderthals were us, smarter than we gave them credit for, more feeling than we ever acknowledged, and we erased them without even fully understanding what we were doing. The question is whether we're capable of recognizing that pattern before we repeat it one final time, on ourselves. Subscribe for the next revelation, because history, it's just getting started.